In today's video, we have all the latest news and rumors around the NHL. And tonight, we're focusing on teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, Edmonton Oilers, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Winnipeg Jets. We have a signing to discuss in Ottawa. Lots of speculation about some PTOs and UFAs that may sign with a few teams as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about here tonight. We have some news and some speculation, some injury updates, and so on. Lots to talk about here today. Let's get first started with the news that the Ottawa Senators have signed forward Nick Cousins to a one-year deal. It's 1 year, $800,000. So pretty valuable signing in my opinion. There was some speculation looking at their roster that they could use a little bit more experience in that bottom six. They've had a lot of turnover there. No real surprise here. The type of player that Steve Staios brings in, they've really focused on bringing in players who compete hard, players with a good amount of experience and good winning pedigree. Of course, he's a Stanley Cup champion from last year, two years in a row with Florida going to the finals. And he's just a real, menace to play against. I know at times his antics can get a little bit across the line. I think he can be frustrating in that sense. But you take a look at some of the players they've added to this team. Like they've got a good amount of experience, cup winners that they've added this offseason between himself and Perron and Jensen. Linus Ullmark, recent Vezina Trophy winner. So this was not by coincidence. That was just definitely by design. It was part of what they wanted to add. So apparently they had conversations with Cousins pretty early in free agency. And I think he was just kind of waiting to see if he could get more term anywhere else. Obviously, it sounds like they were looking at a one-year deal. Even then, he's from the area. He's from Belleville, which is pretty close to Ottawa. So it's pretty close to a homecoming for him. Of course, he certainly enjoys playing against Toronto. I know he scored the series-clinching goal in the playoffs last year in 2023 from the Florida Panthers when they beat the Leafs in round 2. So certainly will add a little bit of little extra element to the Battle of Ontario as well. So overall, it makes the team a little deeper in the bottom six. Adds somebody to play with some grit and some tenacity and some experience in the winning culture there. So ultimately, I think it's a pretty good signing. It makes them a bit better here for sure. Some big time concerns in Vancouver. We've talked in recent days about goalie Thatcher Demko and the fact that his knee injury is still not at a point where he's really skating or doing a lot of things that he'd like to be doing. And there's concerns that he's going to miss camp, maybe miss all of the preseason games, and likely miss the start of the season. But things kind of took a turn today. Their number 2 goaltender, Latvian goalie Artur Silovs, who obviously proved last year in the playoffs especially that he could play, and he was going to definitely get elevated this year. Casey DeSmith was not retained, so he can move up to be the number 2 backup goaltender to Demko. With all the news around Demko, people are prepared to be like, okay, well, I think Canucks fans will feel okay knowing how he played in some important games at the end of last year, that they'd be okay until Demko could get back. Now there's word today that he was not going to be able to participate in some of the Olympic qualifying games for his country, and that they was considered a high risk for injury, and he was having some knee issues himself. So that's not good news at all when both your top 1 and 2 goalies in the Canucks system here are both experiencing knee injuries before the season starts. Of course, Demko's is left over from last year. We don't know exactly what caused the situation with Silovs here, but basically he's got some inflammation issues. The full extent, I'm not quite sure. It can be, a variety of things that cause that. So obviously we don't know that exactly, but the Latvian team, essentially they would have loved to have had him, and they would have preferred he play. But they said because of the knee situation, he was high risk for injury, so they were going to let him rest. So, right now, the Vancouver people are saying that the hope and belief is that inflammation with the knee situation will hopefully be calmed down and okay by the time camp starts. So he's got a few weeks to work on this and get rid of it. So, it's not like it's, completely unreasonable to think that, an injury like that could be better in a couple weeks. I think that's quite possible. But what if it's not? The fact that these were, late August, just a few weeks away from camp, and he's missing a really important game for his country, has to lead you to some concerns. So with all the talk about the Canucks and trading for a goalie and adding more depth, or signing one in free agency, either way, it just got that much more important. Like if they start the year without their top 2 goaltenders and have to go to a number 3 string goaltender, or are forced to make a trade, which could cause them to maybe weaken another part of the team here between cap and roster moves. That's not good. That's not how you want to start your season, especially when you're going to be in tough in that division. So, I mean, not to say that they can't compete and be in the top 3 by the end of the year, but it's certainly not where you want to be at all. So it's a major concern in Vancouver, and the hope is right now that Shelops will be okay for at least the beginning of camp or during camp or before the season at the very least. But there are rumors around them finding another goalie. It's just ramped up even more. The Toronto Maple Leafs, a few things on them. One, they've hired Steve Sullivan, a former NHL veteran player. Of course, he's been retired for a while. He's now been hired as an assistant coach for the American Hockey League team, the Toronto Marlies. So Steve Sullivan will be coaching within the Leafs organization. Lots of talk about UFAs in the Toronto Maple Leafs and how they might address the somewhat opening spot in the left wing in their forward group, given the fact that Nick Robertson has not signed, has seemed to have not changed his mind on wanting a trade, and seems to have no interest still in signing a contract there. Now, doesn't mean that couldn't change before camp opens up, but right now there's been some veteran names that we've been able to get some intel here that are linked to the Toronto Maple Leafs. According to Dave Pagnotta, one of the names that we heard of and had multiple legit offers that he was weighing was Max Pacioretty, and the Leafs apparently are one of the teams that he's talking to. Now, it's believed that this is going to be, if he takes it, would be a 1-year deal. It's not a PTO. Pacioretty apparently has multiple contract offers, not offers for PTOs. It's believed that one of the rebuilding teams out west, some believe it to be the Anaheim Ducks, have offered him a 2-year deal. Can't confirm that, of course, but there are some that claim that to be the case, whereas the Leafs look to be on a 1-year deal. Now, I don't know the exact money that they're offering. I would suspect it's going to be pretty cheap, like $1 million or less. But yeah, Matt Pacioretty last year did not do well. I think he's a shell of his former self. I don't know that he's their answer, to be completely honest. I understand that the left wing depth is not where they'd like it to be. And I understand that Robertson doesn't want to sign. They'd probably prefer to get Robertson in there and to give him a crack at this because, to be honest, I think that he will have a better chance to make it. But I think I heard some of the other, who was it? I think it was on maybe Overdrive. It might have been Frankie Corrado, I think it was talking about analyzing, and I think he hit it the best, saying that if you're Nick Robertson and you've seen how Brad Treliving, the general manager, has tried to make adjustments to build this team, they certainly seem to put an emphasis on size. Nick Robertson is not a big guy. Okay, he's a smaller player. Yes, he's got some skill and he can really shoot the puck, but he's not big. Size is certainly not his friend. You see Craig Berube come in as the new head coach. Well, Craig Berube, of course, we know what kind of player he was when he played, and we know that he loves what you'd call, old school or big boy hockey, when he was coaching the St. Louis Blues. Like the team that he led to the Stanley Cup, they were a big team. They forechecked hard, but there was a lot of size on that team. A lot of grit. Robertson is not big. Again, so you're looking at the coach and the GM, the moves they've made, and what they've done, and you're like, ugh. He's already had a situation where it was clear that Sheldon Keefe, I don't want to say he didn't like him, but I think he had a short leash with him. He didn't have a lot of patience to continue rolling him out to let him continue to grow and develop. And if you're looking at what Treliving's history has been, not only with the Leafs, but in the NHL, and then you look at Berube's history, not just, obviously with the Leafs because he hasn't really started yet, I can see why he'd feel like they're not going to give me a chance. This isn't going to go well. I just want to get a fresh start somewhere else. So from that perspective, I can see why he would want to go, and I'm not sure that he's really going to give up on that. But is he prepared to miss games is the question, right? So if he misses camp and holds out throughout that process, though, And by the time the season's getting ready to start, changes his mind. At that point, they've had a chance to look at a lot of other players. I don't know that they even bother signing them. They might say, we're not going to sign you. We'll continue trying to find a trade and let you know. Like, it's hard to say how that's going to go, right? They can't wait around. They have to make decisions and make their roster. So at the end of the day, if it's still believed that he's not going to sign, that, they got to find some replacement. So Pacioretty is one of those names who's in the mix. Like I said, rumored to be offering him a 1-year deal. There's 2 other names. Now, they'd have very different roles. I mean, one of them might not, but Mike Hoffman's name is apparently out there as well. The former, he's played with a bunch of teams now, but most recently the San Jose Sharks. Played with Montreal before that. Obviously, longtime Senator, Florida Panther. I think there might have been other teams in the mix there too. He's bounced around a lot. But yeah, Hoffman did not do the greatest in San Jose last year, but there is some talk that he could be. Now, with him, I'm not sure if it would definitely be a 1-year deal or PTO, but his name is out there with Toronto. And, of course, he's an Ontario guy. Again, spent a lot of time playing with the Senators before, so he's used to the Canadian markets. Played Montreal, too, right? So, playing in Canada is not a pressure and all that. All the stuff that comes with playing in Canada would not be an issue for Hoff. But, I think, honestly, I kind of wonder if he might be better than Pacioretty, but because Pacioretty's gone through so many gruesome injuries and missed so much time that I just don't know that he's really the player he once was, and I don't know that it's going to go well. That's just my take. Another option apparently that they're weighing is Matt Martin. Of course, Matt Martin right now, based on listening to him talk in recent interviews, sounds like he's still also kind of holding on hope he might be able to get back with the Islanders. Although, based on comments from Lou Lamoriello, it sounds like that might be not very likely. But I know Martin kind of openly disagreed with that possibility. So I'm not really sure what the future holds for Martin. But, I mean, outside of his long career with the Islanders, the Leafs are the only team outside of them that he spent any time with. We know he did create a good bond and friendship with Mitch Marner, who he continues to be close with to this day. So, at the same time, he's got a young family. I don't know that he's going to want to uproot them. I can't see that. So, is he going to want to really be away from them for an extended time? I don't really know. I'm not sure how likely that is, but those are 3 names in the rumor mill that are connected to the Leafs, and odds are that one of them does end up there. Hard to say which one. Right now, I'd probably say Pacioretty seems to be the favorite, but we'll have to see where that goes. Carolina Hurricanes forward Jesper Fast has been confirmed and ruled out for the upcoming 24-25 season. Jesper Fast ended up having neck surgery earlier this month. Unfortunately, that injury happened to him on the last regular season game of the 23-24 campaign. Meaningless game. Didn't even need to be in that game at all. And then, of course, missed the playoffs, and now he's going to be out all season. Neck surgery is a pretty big deal. Can be a long recovery. Obviously, he'll be eligible to be placed on long-term injury reserve. We know right now they're trying to get Seth Jarvis signed, and all indications are that they're pretty close to having that ironed out. And I kind of wondered if, because a lot of people think that the Jarvis deal is close, but the word is that Eric Tulsky and the Canes are working on some other options here as well. That team is not the same. They lost a lot in free agency. A lot of players couldn't be retained. They're still a good team for sure, but they're not as deep as they once were. And I think they're trying to figure out adding some, good value or cheaper depth. So we'll see. I expect Jarvis's contract to be done here in the not too distant future, but that's terrible news for Jesper Fast, who's going to miss the entire 24-25 season on Winnipeg. Now, NHL Network radio host on Sirius XM, Dave McCarthy, who also writes for NHL.com, he said that he's had sources tell him that there are multiple teams out there that are willing to offer sheet Cole Perfetti of the Winnipeg Jets. We know he's one of the top young RFAs that remain unsigned. He and the Winnipeg Jets have yet to come to terms. I'm not sure that it's going to be a long-term deal, but I think the Jets and Perfetti have discussed multiple options. I know Perfetti had an up-and-down season last year. I think it was definitely good for him to have a new coach this year as well. As much as Rick Bowness has had a long, great career, I have a lot of respect for him, but I think it was time for a change there in Winnipeg, and Perfetti might be one of the players that possibly benefits from that. Now, the rumored amount on an offer sheet that he says teams would definitely do would be 2 years, around $4.5 million. Problem is that he doesn't think it's as likely to happen because he thinks the Jets at that level would match, that they'd have to overpay by even more to get them to consider not matching, because the whole point of it is to be successful here. But yeah, I mean, there's a number of RFAs that are out there right now that are unsigned, and you have to wonder about potential offer sheets. And I do wonder if a team would consider going after Perfetti. But if you look around the NHL, there's not a ton of teams that have a lot of space, but there are definitely some. Generally, the teams that are rebuilding are not it was close to winning right now. But Perfetti is an interesting name, and I think you'd have to go up around, I'm going to say, at least $6 to $7 million before Winnipeg would probably walk. I think he's a player that they really like and do value for the future, especially after losing Ricker McGroarty. I mean, they did get Braden Yager back, thankfully, but at the end of the day, they want to make their team better, and getting back a draft pick or two for Perfetti right now doesn't really do that. It sets them back, because even if those picks turn out to be good players, it's going to be a while before they can be impactful. When it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, Frank Seravalli had another note today on the potential right shot defenseman that they've been targeting. We've talked about a few of them, but he's really pushing Tony Deangelo. He says Tony Deangelo really wants to be an Oiler, and that he will gladly sign there for cheap for an opportunity to play on that team with all those top guys and really see if he can help. Obviously, adding somebody who can be a good puck mover and playing that second pair with Darnell Nurse is a top priority right now for Stan Bowman and the Oilers. And it's not going to be easy. We've got Justin Schultz in the mix on a PTO maybe. You got Tyson Barrie maybe on a PTO. But Tony Deangelo, to be honest, is probably a better option than both those guys. He skates better than both of them and moves the puck better offensively. Like, he's not that far removed from 40, 50 point season. Now, is Tony Deangelo any better defensively? Not really. It's a big part of the reason why things didn't work out in Philadelphia. But you're not really going after somebody for that. But at the same time, you're kind of expecting any pair that has Darnell Nurse in it to be more of the muscle and the defensive responsible one. And that concerns me, to be honest. Nurse has been good at times, had some good games in the playoffs, but he had some pretty brutal ones too. And it's not all about moving the puck and offensively, like, it's both ends of the ice. So we'll see. But Tony Deangelo apparently really wants to be an Edmonton Oiler and is willing to sign cheap. And right now, it seems to be the leading contender for them to add a right shot defenseman to the depth of their lineup. Also looking at an article from the Calgary Sun on the Flames. The Flames apparently are ready, able, and willing to make moves with other teams to take on contracts that they want to dump, either cap dump moves or moves that are not as not as favorable, you could say. I don't think they're looking to take on any money like on a super long-term basis or anything. It'll probably be a max 1 to 2 years for term. But if teams want to sweeten the pie a little bit and make it interesting for them to consider it, they have the space and would be willing to do that to gain extra assets to help them with the rebuild. As we approach training camp and as we approach the NHL season, I would suspect that the Flames are going to be one of those teams that you could see maybe broker a deal or two, trying to weaponize that space and to help other teams get out of a jam by getting some sweeteners out of it to make it better for themselves. So we'll see. Also, when it comes to Rasmus Andersson, it's a name that gets a lot of attention lately. The belief is as well that he's more likely going to be a top candidate, not to say for sure, for the NHL trade deadline this year. I don't know that a trade before the season or early in the season really is super likely for him. Not to say that it couldn't come together, because he's a really good, underrated top 4 defenseman, I think. And teams like this guy. They've inquired quite a bit. Nothing has come together. There's nothing imminent right now. I think the Flames have had a lot of interest, but that's as far as it goes. But as the season goes along and as teams want to make upgrades to have another offensive-minded defenseman, somebody who can run a power play, move the puck well, and somebody who's half decent in their own end, Anderson's name is going to continue to come up. So, again, no guarantee he goes, but given where they're at in their rebuild, I would not be shocked if he's one of the top defensive names chased at this year's trade deadline. So that is all your news and rumors here for today. Of course, let me know what you think on everything down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.